Bonjour. Good morning. My name is Gord Johns. I'm the federal NDP agriculture critic, and it's an honor to be joining you here in Ottawa today on the unceded lands of the Anishinaabe and Algonquin people. I just want to thank first everybody who's joining us today to discuss this very critically important issue, protecting the rights of farmers to save and reuse their own seed. I'm pleased to be joined by my good friend Yves Perron, who's the agriculture critic from the Bloc Québécois, by Cathy Holtslander, Director of Research and Policy with National Farmers Union, and Aabir Dey, Director of Canadian Field Programs at SeedChange. They're joining us via Zoom, and obviously Yves is here, but you'll be hearing from them all very shortly. Today, this morning, we just came from the House of Commons, where I had the honor to rise and present a petition today signed by over 6,000 Canadians who are deeply concerned about the government's proposed changes to the plant breeders' rights regulations. Now, we know that farmers, we've heard from them, they've been unequivocally clear that these changes would have a significant impact on their ability to grow food, protect their livelihoods, and strengthen food security in our country. Now, when Plant Breeders' Rights Act was amended in 2015, farmers rang the bell. They were concerned about it. The age-old right to save seed on their own farms was redefined as farmers' privilege, something that could be removed at the stroke of a pen. So that's why we're here today, ringing the alarm bell once again. Powerful, we know that, that farmers, when they warned that future governments might side with these powerful multinationals, seeking to force them to buy seed every year and pay royalties rather than existing their traditional right to save and replant. Farmers warned about this, and the Canadian Food Inspection Agency's proposed regulatory amendment does exactly that, what they warned against, beginning with fruit, vegetable, ornamental, and hybrid varieties. Now, thousands of Canadians, like I mentioned, these petitioners, they're calling on the government to put farmers first, to protect their right to save seed. They're also calling on Ottawa to say no to regulatory changes that would strip away farmers' privilege for new varieties of fruit, ornamental, vegetable, and hybrid plants. This is about protecting the rights of farmers and defending food security. It's why we're here today, to call on the government to abandon these harmful proposed regulatory amendments. Canada really should be providing more support to our public plant breeding system, which benefits farmers and the public. And farmers' privilege is key to food security and Canada's sovereignty. Ensuring farmers can reproduce crops on their own farms, even if supply chain or climate impacts restrict the supplying of propagating material. This is critical, and I want to thank everybody who's joining us. And with that, it's my honor to turn it over to my good friend Yves Perron, the agriculture critic for the Bloc Québécois. And after the remarks, we'll be happy to take some questions. Yves.
Yes. Merci beaucoup, Gord. Bonjour tout le monde. Alors, quand j'ai pris connaissance de la pétition qui est présentée ce matin, j'ai contacté Gord pour l'appuyer dans sa démarche. Il m'a gracieusement, d'ailleurs, à cette occasion-là, proposé de déposer la version papier de la pétition, ce qui nous a permis ce matin de la déposer 2 fois plutôt qu'une, parce que c'est important, je pense que pour les citoyens en général, on insiste de façon très importante sur cet aspect-là et sur la tangente dangereuse que le gouvernement est en train de prendre dans la déréglementation et dans laisser le contrôle à des grandes entreprises privées qui vont s'enrichir sur le dos de nos producteurs agricoles et qui auront en bout de piste un impact négatif sur l'augmentation du prix de l'alimentation. Donc, je remercie mon ami Gord Johns du NPD d'avoir gracieusement accepté de m'inclure dans sa démarche. On travaille ensemble sur ce dossier-là. Alors, merci, mon ami. Donc, ça me fait plaisir de me joindre aujourd'hui à Mme Holtslander, qui est Mme Holtslander, directrice de la recherche et des politiques à l'Union nationale des fermiers, et à Aabir Dey de SeedChange et directeur de l'initiative de la famille Botha sur la sécurité des semences au Canada, qui sont avec nous par Zoom. Donc, dans la journée ce matin, on a déposé, comme je vous disais, ces 2 pétitions-là, puis on conteste une proposition qui est proposée dans le règlement par la CIA pour le règlement sur la protection des obtentions végétales. Les agriculteurs ont été clairs, cette modification-là aura un impact important sur leur capacité à cultiver les denrées alimentaires et à protéger leurs moyens de subsistance et à renforcer la sécurité alimentaire. Donc, comme Gord l'a mentionné en anglais tantôt, quand la loi sur la protection des obtentions végétales a été modifiée en 2015, les agriculteurs ont déjà sonné l'alarme parce que le droit ancestral de conserver les semences dans leur propre exploitation agricole a été redéfini comme un privilège des agriculteurs qui, selon les craintes de plusieurs, peut être supprimé d'un simple trait de plume. C'est ce qu'on veut éviter ce matin. C'est pourquoi on est ici, pour tirer une nouvelle fois la sonnette d'alarme. Les agriculteurs ont averti que le futur gouvernement pourrait se ranger du côté des puissantes multinationales qui cherchent à les obliger à acheter des semences chaque année et à payer des redevances plutôt que d'exercer leur droit traditionnel de conserver et de replanter leurs semences. La modification réglementaire, donc, proposée par l'Agence canadienne d'inspection des aliments va exactement dans ce sens-là, en commençant par les variétés de fruits, de légumes et d'ornements et hybrides. Les citoyens demandent au gouvernement de donner la priorité aux agriculteurs et de protéger leur droit de conserver leurs semences. Demandent à Ottawa de refuser les modifications réglementaires qui supprimeraient le privilège des agriculteurs pour les nouvelles variétés de fruits, de plantes ornementales, de légumes et de plantes hybrides. Il s'agit de protéger le droit des agriculteurs et de défendre la sécurité alimentaire. Nous sommes ici aujourd'hui pour demander au gouvernement donc d'abandonner ces modifications qui sont, à notre avis, préjudiciables. Sur ce, je vais laisser la parole à Cathy et Aabir qui vont commenter de façon plus détaillée, considérant leur large expertise dans le domaine. Ça nous fera plaisir de prendre les questions. Gord en anglais, moi en français, puis on pourra se compléter. Merci.
Thank you, Mr. Johns, for supporting our e-petition, and Monsieur Perron for your support on this important agricultural issue. Seed is the foundation of our food system. Who controls seed? How new plant varieties are developed? Who benefits from seed? And how decisions are made about seed all have big consequences. This regulatory proposal shifts control towards private investors and away from farmers and the Canadian public. These regulations will mean farmers who buy new plant breeders' rights protected varieties of fruit, vegetable, and ornamental crops will not be allowed to save the seed or other propagating material like bulbs, tubers, and cuttings to grow next year's crop. To continue growing these varieties, they will have to buy new seed and plants or pay royalties every year. The Plant Breeders' Rights Act gives breeders monopoly control of protected varieties for 20 years. If a company decides to take a protected variety off the market before this period expires, it will not enter the public domain and farmers will lose access to it entirely. Even though the horticultural farmers who practice seed saving are a minority, it is important to them. They can adapt varieties to their farm's conditions and know how their seed has been grown. It also ensures farmers will have the varieties they need, even if the plant breeder's rights holder takes it off the market before the protected period ends, providing long-term security and autonomy. This regulatory change would take away farmers' choices and increase dependency on the companies that sell plant breeders' rights protected varieties. So this is about who has power in the food system. This is also about making it easier to remove farmers' privilege from other crop kinds or farm types in the future. The government believes shifting power towards seed companies will stimulate private investment in vegetable, fruit, and ornamentals breeding. This rationale doesn't hold water. Most commercial horticultural farmers already buy seed every year, and nearly all of Canada's vegetable seed is imported and was not bred for Canadian growing conditions. Tightening monopoly control will enable foreign seed companies to increase their seed prices, but there is no guarantee they would invest their profits into Canadian breeding. Canada used to have a highly successful public plant breeding system for fruit, vegetables, and ornamentals, with specialized research stations in every growing region of Canada. Scientists dedicated their careers to developing varieties for our growing conditions to support our agriculture, food, and the beauty of our communities. These facilities were victims of budget cutbacks and austerity measures. Only a few breeding programs remain, and they are being starved for funds. If farmers' privilege is eliminated for new fruit, vegetable, and ornamental crop varieties, we fear this change will be used to justify and end the government support for the remaining public breeding programs for these crops. We would then be completely dependent on private, mostly foreign companies with little incentive to develop new varieties we need for Canada's changing conditions. Canada's farmers, our ingenuity, our knowledge, and our understanding of plants and production needs are too often underestimated or taken for granted. Farmers are seed experts. Keeping our right to save seed intact is part and parcel of upholding farmer dignity and building food sovereignty. Over to you, Aabir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johns and Monsieur Perron, for the opportunity to speak today, for supporting this petition, and for drawing attention to a critical issue that impacts all farmers. I'd like to echo all of the excellent points made by my colleague Cathy Holtslander at the National Farmers Union. Thank you, Cathy, for explaining how this proposed regulatory change will limit the ability of farmers to save and adapt seeds to their own farms and will increase their dependency on international seed companies and plant breeders selling proprietary varieties. I'd like to provide the perspective of our organization SeedChange. We are a charitable nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting Canadian farmers and seed growers who save seed and develop new crop varieties of vegetables and grains on their own farms. For years now, we've been working with the University of British Columbia, farmers, and public plant breeders across North America to implement a vegetable plant breeding program with funding from Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada's Organic Science Cluster. Through this publicly funded work, plant breeders and farmers are leading in the development of developing new varieties of organic carrots, peppers, bok choy, and other vegetables. Farmers are saving seeds from the best plants in their fields, selecting and replanting them year after year to ultimately create new varieties of crops that are adapted to Canada's farming conditions. All these varieties, when they're ready for release, will be in the public domain. That means that any farmer who wants to save seed from these crops on their own farms would be free to do so. I wanted to share our experience in doing this work because we know how much time and labor it takes to develop a new variety. This is why we work to secure public resources to ensure that the varieties we're developing can afford to be in the public domain. And this work is possible because the federal government in this program has recognized that funding breeding programs like this to create varieties to help farmers reduce input costs and adapt to climate change is part of the public good. And our work clearly demonstrates that it's possible to develop useful new varieties without resorting to forcing farmers to buy seeds and pay royalties every year. Contrary to the rationale presented for this regulatory change, international plant breeders are already dominating the vegetable seed market in Canada. In fact, one of the reasons our breeding program exists is because we're trying to build more Canadian alternatives for that market. To echo what Cathy has shared, what we ultimately need is more funding for Canadian plant breeding programs, and that shouldn't come on the backs and livelihoods of Canadian farmers. Ultimately, we believe that this proposed regulatory change is at odds with the investments in the public good like the ones in our breeding program, and we strongly encourage the government to reevaluate the impacts of this proposal. At SeedChange, we have the fortune of working with some of the most innovative, generous, and hardworking farmers and seed growers in Canada, those that are saving and developing crop varieties for Canadian climates so that we have food on our plates for generations to come. We believe that these farmers deserve better than what this regulation proposes. They need robust, well-funded public plant breeding programs, and they deserve the right to save seeds on their farms. Thank you very much.
I want to thank Aabir and Cathy for standing up for the rights of farmers and defending food security. My good friend Yves for clearly standing in solidarity in defending the same rights of farmers and defending food security. Now we'll go to questions.
Thank you, merci. For reporters on Zoom, if you have a question, please use the raise hand function. Pour les journalistes présents en ligne, si vous avez une question, s'il vous plaît, utilisez la fonction main levée. Thank you. This concludes the press conference. Merci, c'est ce qui conclut cette conférence de presse.
Merci, thank you.
Merci tout le monde.